Alright, so we continue with what might happen on date 3, 4, 5, when a neurotypical woman dates a guy with Asperger syndrome. And I watched what I recorded so far, and I'm not too happy with it because I feel I'm not explaining things well, and I'm going on those rants. Recording these videos is really hard because I try not to edit much on purpose, just to have it more like a normal conversation flow. But it's really hard to talk for half an hour about emotional subjects and stuff without making mistakes. One thing I definitely wanted to correct is, I think at some point I say, oh, people don't talk, or people shouldn't talk about their exes or past relationships on dates. And that was definitely, first of all, it was about the second date, and it's too much of a blanket statement because if you're in your 30s and 40s, and chances are you've been divorced, so people then, the conversation does turn toward that sometimes, when it's like, oh, why did you move from Alabama to Alaska or whatever, or to get married or whatever, or why did you get divorced? You just want to say something like, okay, he or she was bipolar and I had a really hard time dealing with it, or something, but you don't want to get into emotional detail of how much you suffered or disappointments, and especially not like with past just dates or partners that you've just, that came in and out of your life, and you just that's just not a good conversation topic, even though it seems like you might be curious about it with the other person, and you definitely don't want to dig there either. So second date, it's still just more superficial, getting to know the other person, I feel, and you don't want to dig too deep, especially as it's just a second date. I think that's where people with Asperger's often get things wrong. They feel like as soon as they have the great connection going with online dating, writing back and forth, and then the first date goes well, and then there's a second date, they almost might feel like they're already in a relationship. Or they might even feel that way from what I see online, if they're just corresponding long distance with a woman, and it's just absolutely not the case. Really, getting to know a person takes more than an hour or two of FaceTime. So so very important to keep in mind that you might not see this person again. It's still just getting to know. That person doesn't owe you anything, and it's a good sign if she wants a second date, but you still don't know how it will turn out. So do you want to tell your whole life story to this person already? Maybe just keep it more lighthearted. Anyway. Alright, so date 3, 4, 5. So things, then really do get a bit more in depth, and that's where I found as a woman, you really then notice that conversation is not as good as it can be, to put it lightly. And it's all conversation. That's the important thing. And that tends to then not go well with a guy with Asperger's. And that just takes a lot of practice, and then Aspies don't tend to have that practice because they've only been through so many dating situations, and maybe very few that progress to date 2 or 3. And on the third date, you just can't get by anymore with anecdotes and just talking about your same hobbies or your job again like you did on date 1 or 2. But conversations become more, you really want to find out more about the other person on a deeper level, emotionally, etc. And where maybe first date is still, you ask questions and get answers, the more you progress with a person, romantic conversation becomes more like conversation prompts, and then you volunteer stuff. So, and Aspies are bad at that. Like, let's say that walk through the park. As a woman, I might then look over a lake or something and say, yes, just I come here often, looking at the water relaxes me, or being out in nature is my way to unwind when things get kind of stressful in my job. And I might stop there and, okay, I didn't ask a question, but it's a prompt. At that point, if the guy just looks with me across the lake and is silent, that's not a good thing, because you really, even though it was not a question, it's a prompt for him to maybe say, okay, I relax this way, or when I get stressed out, I do this. Getting to know another person is almost like, you're handing each other pieces, and you're building this image through a puzzle of the other person, where you get to know them really well, and then you can use that as a basis for banter, flirting, and deeper conversation. So you want to take the conversation deeper. And with an Aspi, then it can quickly feel like it's all one way. As a woman, I ask him stuff. He might answer. He might continue to tell me about his job, his hobbies, and I'm getting all this information. And maybe I'm even like getting deep into his hobbies. We do stuff together that he likes to do, but often there's not much coming back. He doesn't have like this vital interest in what am I into, what are my hobbies, how do I see the world, so I might, and it gets a little bit, you feel, if you feel it's like one way, you're soaking up like a sponge all this stuff about him, but he's not that interested in you. Then again, neurotypicals drop hints, so then you notice that he's really has a hard time in the first place to kind of absorb what you're about, or to even understand it. So especially as you plan those dates 3, 4, 5, I as a woman might realize that, okay, if he has an idea of what would be a good date, he doesn't get hints that if it's not something I really want to do. If he feels something is a fantastic date idea, then it takes a lot to get him off of that. So I've had situations where, like, oh, he got the idea to go eat at Cracker Barrel because he loves eating there, and you can say stuff like, oh yeah, Cracker Barrel, I used to eat there a lot because my mother-in-law really liked the place. And then most neurotypical people could tell from my face and what I'm saying that no, Cracker Barrel is not a good place I want to go to, or it's not my favorite choice for a romantic lunch or something. And the guy he's all excited about going to one of his favorite places, Cracker Barrel. So Aspi might feel like, well, why doesn't she clearly say out loud, oh, I don't like eating at Cracker Barrel, let's pick somewhere else. And some women might do this, but a lot of neurotypical people, again, they want to be on one emotional page with the other person. And then if you tell this person, yeah, this place that you like to eat at, I hate it, it's this little clash that, ideally you want to avoid. And a lot of neurotypical people, when they get the hint, yeah, she used to have to go to Cracker Barrel with her mother-in-law, yeah, I'm not going to suggest it again, then there doesn't even have to be that clash. But or guy suggested, there are like paint nights that are organized, and they are like now like nights where you like arrange flowers or something in a glass bowl. And he got the idea that this was like a great thing to go to. I took one look at it, and it was like $50 and organized by some flower store or something. And I was like, okay, do I really want to do this with a bunch of strangers? Doesn't seem so much fun. It was really hard to pry the guy off the idea. I mean, he kept studying. Oh, do you want to go then, or do you want to go to this event? And facial reactions and my voice and everything probably, suggested that no, I didn't really want to do this, but fortunately he abandoned the idea eventually when I just didn't pick a night. Yeah. On a more positive side, sometimes it can feel like, yes, this guy is very accepting, because I might date 3, 4, 5, you disclose more, you still want to show yourself from a good side, but you start disclosing more, maybe little embarrassing things about yourself or negatives. And then a guy with Asperger's will likely just listen to this and not say anything, and you feel very accepted, even though maybe he just wants to avoid, again, a conversation about things where he might, where he's not so familiar. So as a woman, you can say something like, oh, you know what, maybe if the topic's on reality TV, and then if as a woman you say like, oh yeah, sometimes I like to watch The Bachelor, and a typical guy would then go like, oh, that show, why do you like to watch that? What's and the Aspie might just go like, okay, but not talk about it, because he doesn't know anything about The Bachelor. It's not comfortable talking about it. And that eventually adds to the picture where as a woman you feel like, yeah, he's not interested in me, because even things like that would maybe rub him the wrong way. He's not really digging into, okay, what drives her, or, alright. Yeah. And, after now dating several guys with Asperger's syndrome, it's really, you can tell you're dating an Aspie if the conversation on date 10 or 12 still feels a lot like conversation on date 2, because, okay, maybe you're disclosing more as a woman, but the Aspie is not more open, and there's not more conversation building on what was previously talked about. And you get like this vague feeling that he really only catches a small fraction of what you told him about yourself. And and then there's a whole thing where he's very, very passive, and again, I've dated Aspies where we met in a dating situation, like online dating or a singles event, and then we just kept going on dates, and he never even tried to get physically close or anything. Just completely passive, as if like almost in a standoffish way, okay, she has to make the first move, which is very confusing. Then when you finally as a woman go like, okay, I've had it, this, we want to have more than friendship, clearly, but he just puts all that responsibility on me to take the relationship further. Then eventually you maybe make the first move, and then you realize, yeah, okay, this guy wants that too. But it's I think I make a separate entry about that whole topic, about why I feel, even in our society now, a guy should not be completely passive. But there's certainly, it crosses your mind, okay, could this guy be gay? And then you go like, well, no, my gaydar is not going off. Because especially in my generation, someone might still be wanting to date a woman officially and maybe still be in a closet. Or, then you may maybe think, okay, maybe there's trauma or whatever, that's why he doesn't want to get physical, and then you take it extra slow. But and once you've been on a few dates, then you have those dates at each other's places, potentially, or apartment or home. And that's a whole another thing, because obviously the relationship has progressed then, and then if you go to somebody's house, you learn so much about the other person. You see how they live, and it can be really startling that, like, if an Aspie for the first time comes to your house and you open the door, he will maybe look around, but he'll not comment on anything. And neurotypical people, if they for the first time walk into somebody's house, I mean, it would be pretty weird if nothing catches their eye, or if they don't mention anything. I mean, they might, whatever, admire your kitchen, they might look at the books in a shelf, knickknacks on the fireplace mantle. I mean, there's so many conversations right there that you can start, and an Aspie will not comment on anything, not on the furniture, not on the colors, not on anything potentially. So that's I've encountered that, and it's a little bit like, and then maybe you go to his house as a woman, and yeah, at that point it can become obvious that even though this guy said he wanted to date and he had this online dating profile, and he's maybe even complaining that hasn't had enough dates, or that women, that special someone is missing from his life, but then you go to his house and realize this guy is absolutely not set up for having visitors, or it feels like there's no space for a woman in his life. Sometimes literally, because chances are he has tons and tons of stuff, might be neatly organized in tons of containers, or it might be just almost like hoarder style, really run down, really dirty, and that makes you think as a woman, how high is really the priority of meeting somebody. If he's, there are certain society tropes where women like their clean bathroom, so if a guy doesn't even clean their bathroom very well, it's like one of those things where you go like, okay, like one guy, like he said, oh, my dogs ate my sofa a long time ago, so to watch a movie he pulled out these 2 folding chairs and set them up for us to watch movies on this big screen TV. And I mean, like, you go like, he's completely not set up for any kind of romance or relationship. Most people, I know it sounds silly, but most neurotypical people do that. If they go out and dating, eventually they think like, okay, somebody might walk into my house. How does it all look to them? And neurotypical people have a more easy time putting themselves into other people's shoes. So I think a guy will think, okay, how will all this look to a woman? So you have these dates at home, and at that point, as a woman, I might do the first step and just lean in and kiss him or something. But even then, an Asperger guy, I think, will be fairly just reactive, not completely passive. He'll kiss back. If I wrap my arms around him, he might do the same to me. But you don't have this thing where, with a neurotypical guy, if you kiss him, he kisses back maybe more intensely. If you wrap your arms around him, he'll pull you closer, all this kind of thing. It will be almost like mirroring what I do. That's what he does. I know it's a very difficult situation if you haven't been in a lot of, if you've only maybe done it 1, 2, 3 times where dates progressed, where you get a bit more physical with a woman. So dating progression can be really, really slow with an Aspie, both in, building the connection, getting to know the other person, and also the physical aspect. And in fact, I went on a whole big rant here about why am I saying I like shy introverted guys, and then I complain if like nothing's happening for 10 dates, and I leave that for another entry. But basically, yes, the process is slow, and I want to talk now about where it can go wrong. Because once you're past the first and second date and you start going out regularly, there's a certain basis built. But it can also go wrong on almost like this on date 3, 4, 5, and I want to talk about that. And I think where it can break down completely is if any point in time, the woman gets the impression, oh, he just does not care about me at all. And that can happen with an Aspie, um, especially as they tend to sometimes say blunt things or say things very directly that's on their mind, and it just comes out completely wrong. Um, and there's the thing where I already mentioned that Aspies don't ask the woman much. They don't have this intense interest in the woman's hobbies and what she's up to and her perspectives on life. And then if you add to that he says maybe something where it makes it painfully obvious that he doesn't care, then at that point the woman will probably just move on, because I don't know, there's some even like evolutionary biology thing where we want a guy who wants us for us, who is interested in us specifically, and who will not like lose interest and then go on to the next woman because he just doesn't care really. So so we want to feel that intense interest in how we are, and that he's trying to get to know us. And one thing that happened with one guy I was dating, and that was only at the phase where we were making out and stuff like that. So that happened one evening. We had been making out, we were watching a movie or something, and then his dog came up, and he was like petting his dog, looking to the dog's eyes, and he said, I wonder what it would be like to have a girlfriend who doesn't talk. That would be really cool, like a girlfriend like a dog, somebody who just adores you and doesn't talk. And that was so painful, especially the way he said it, and I could tell he really meant it. And at that point, it really showed me that he would prefer if there wasn't all that talking and conversation, and he didn't care about what I was talking about. And I already had that impression somewhat just by how Aspies don't ask questions and don't, just conversation doesn't flow easily. Conversation stops quickly if they have a chance. Often you have this usual thing where dialogue should be like a tennis match back and forth, but with an Aspie it can feel like you lob a ball, he drops it, you lob another ball or question, he just watches it go by, and he's avoiding talking about anything that he's not comfortable about, which is anything but the main things in his life and his special interests. So if a guy says something like that, then you suddenly realize, I can't date this guy. Another thing, Aspies very often like sarcasm. Sarcasm is like the cheapest form of humor. You